Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another historian's interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. And today my guest is a first-timer here on the channel. He is a graduate of the Department of History at the University of Malta, where he read for his undergraduate degree VA European and Global History with Archaeology between 2020 and 2023. While reading for his degree, he also worked as a researcher with AIS Archaeology, conducting archaeological and historical research for head archaeologist Mr Vincenzo Cherubini. I apologize if I butchered that name on sites such as the Royal Navy Hospital in Mtarfa, Malta. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Again, apologies if I butcher that name. My guest is also very active in the Malta University Historical Society and currently serves as their event coordinator. He is currently reading for his Master's of Arts in European Global History at the University of Malta, where he continues to work on medieval and crusading history under the supervision of Mr Charles Dalli. He currently works for Heritage Malta as part of the Visitor Services Department, where, among other duties, he conducts tours of the various Punic, Roman, and medieval sites, such as St. Paul's Catacombs, the Domus Romana, Abbatija Tad-Dejr. I'm probably butchering that name so bad.
Tad-Dejr.
Thank you again. And others. Well, his passion for history draws him mainly to the medieval period. My guest is also very interested in antiquities, particularly Greek, Roman, Punic, and Near Eastern cultures, as well as early modern Mediterranean corsairing conducted by the Maltese and Hospitallers vessels operating out of the Maltese Islands between 1530 and 1798. British railway history and monastic communities and their role in society throughout the medieval and early modern periods are also among his historical interests. So, without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to historian Mr. Luke Gauci. Luke, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I must say, you have quite the resume. I mean, all the things in your bio is just incredible. Is there anything else you would like to share the viewers and listeners of things that you didn't put on your bio?
No, not really. What I will mention is that I also served in past years as the public relations officer and the assistant secretary and the campus liaison officer in the Malta University Historical Society when I was at university proper, as in doing my undergraduate. But other than that,
man, oh man. So let's actually start at the beginning, Luke. So for you, tell us about, how history sort of came to you growing up. Were you always interested in history, or did that sort of come about later in life?
No, I was always interested in history, but growing up, no one ever told me you can study history. To me, it was just something that I was interested in, and we used to go to museums, and some of which I work in now, ironically. But I mean, I always liked history. I was always into it. I was always reading and visiting sites and stuff like that. Funnily enough, though, my interests shifted slightly. Mm-hmm. So my fellow colleagues at the University Historical Society are going to find this quite funny, but growing up, I was more interested in World War II and British period history. And they always tease me because I study medieval history now. Stuff like I say it's too recent. But my specialization in history changed over the years. I was obsessed with the Second World War.
Okay, all right. So after getting your bachelor's and also going back to your bio again, you're also in the process of getting your master's degree, correct?
Yes, I'm doing it part-time while I work with Heritage Malta. But basically, I'm looking at the socio-political changes brought about by the Fourth Crusade on Constantinople, Crete, and Cyprus.
Nice.
So basically, looking at how the populations of these two islands and a city changed under Latin and Venetian occupation. I plan to go all the way up to the Ottoman conquests, hopefully. So in the case of Constantinople, it will be from Greek-Roman, I shouldn't say Greek, Greco-Roman, let's it that way, to Latin, to Greco-Roman again. In the case of Cyprus and Crete, it's Greco-Roman to Venetian.
Right.
Then.
Nice. So tell us, Luke, when was sort of like the aha moment that you realized that you wanted to, pursue history in a professional setting?
So it's a bit strange in Malta how the education system works. So to go to let me backtrack. Basically, you have primary school, so grade 1 to grade 6, and then in my day it was still called then you go up to secondary school, which was Form 1 to Form 5. To get the equivalent, I think with the US, it's sort of like middle school and high school, I think.
Yes.
Sort of. In Form 5, you sit for your O levels, which is based on the British system. So, and based on those results, you can get into sixth form, which then you do your intermediates and your A levels to get into university. Now, unfortunately, language and maths was not my forte. So I struggled to get the Maltese O level, ironically enough, and the maths O level. So the maths O level, I got it eventually, but the Maltese, I never managed to get it. So to go to sixth form, you need to have English language, Maltese, which is language and literature, and maths. So I couldn't, strictly speaking, go to sixth form. Now, because of that, it backtracked me quite a lot. So while most of my friends at the age of 16, 17 were going off to junior college and St. Aloysius and so on, I was stuck at another school, which is called MCAST, which is basically an alternative to A levels and university. Now, because I couldn't take history as an O level when I was at school, because I was the only person who chose it, it's a bit strange that if you need to meet a certain quota of students to be able to teach a subject. So
okay.
I couldn't take history. I ended up going down the engineering line. Now, I was always interested in electronic engineering. We used to do it at school as well. So I took design and technology, which was basically a unit-based engineer, O level, and graphical communication, which is basically architectural drawing. With those, I went to MCAST and started studying for my diploma in electronic engineering. That was 2 years. Then I moved on to the next level, which is basically the advanced diploma. But I wasn't happy. I was trying to specialize in computing, and because of my language, because of my dyslexia, my language difficulties, I couldn't get programming down.
Right.
So I wasn't coping. Then I decided, because my dad is an accountant and so is my brother, I went into business studies. So I did 2 years at MCAST and then another 2 years at another school, another private school. But basically, I was sick of it. I couldn't understand any of it. I was very unhappy. Then I learned that at 23, there is a clause at the University of Malta that you can go in as a mature student to do a degree. So basically a bypass to the O-levels and the A-levels. And I finished second year of my business degree, got my higher national degree, dropped out, and enrolled into history at university. Now, that originally started out, I decided to do the history A-level privately just for fun.
Right.
Just to do it. And that ultimately led me to learn that I can actually study history at university. And that's what happened.
Nice. So after getting your BA and now obtaining your MA in history, what is sort of for you the goals going forward as historians? So in a sense of tying to, the Malta Historical Society as well as the various dig sites you've been a part of, what is your goal that you set out for yourself, in a sense as, okay, I'm an historian, this is what my goals are and how I'm going to approach history to better the scholarship and the discipline?
So basically, I want to get my work out there. So I have delved into publishing a couple of articles here and there with the Historians magazine, which is a UK-based magazine, and Living Medieval magazine as well, which is UK-based. But ultimately, I'm hoping that by completing my master's, aside from getting the master's, my research will be enough to go into a journal, or parts of it will go into one journal and another, and I'm hoping that's what will happen.
Nice.
On the other spectrum, at the moment I am a senior clerk with Heritage Malta. I am basically, as you said in my bio, I sell tickets and I give tours to tourists and to groups and so on and so forth. It's my hope that eventually I will be able to climb the ranks and enter and do work curatorially with Heritage Malta.
Awesome. That's actually really, really cool. And I like, I've said these numerous times on other historians interviews, but I always love talking with fellow historians to know more about, what are their goals going forward, because being an historian, it's not an easy gig. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a lot of research, a lot of training, a lot of studying, and then going out there in the world. It's a little intimidating because there are, the titans that we've researched and had to learn about in our studies, in our schooling, that can fill us with a sense of anxiety and that sense of imposter syndrome when it comes to writing our own research and presenting it to a committee. Again, that anxiety comes into play. So for you, Luke, during your schooling in undergrad and maybe even now in your master's, do you have this sense of, imposter syndrome? And if not, what has continued to discipline you to learn and study and ultimately teach history in any format down the road in your life?
I'll be honest, I've never really had imposter syndrome when I'm doing my research, but I do have a funny story that actually happened about a week and a half ago.
Okay.
I was working on my master's, and I was comparing Choniatis's chronicle of the 1203 sack of Constantinople, and I was writing my notes, and I made an assumption based on what I had read, comparing Choniatis to other writers like Philhardan and Clary and Robert of Clary, and I made an assumption, and I basically later that day, I was in contact with Mr. Dalli, my supervisor, and he sent me an article that I was looking for about one of the fires that famously took place during the siege, during the
Right.
first siege. And basically the article made the same argument that I came up with a couple of hours before. And I was like, I actually feel like I'm a historian suddenly.
Oh, nice.
You know, I had never felt like that. It was the first time I was like, oh my God, I made a comparison. I came up with an idea, and my idea was correct.
Nice. That's actually really, really good. You know, that's probably like the first original answer I've gotten to this question, Luke. So thank you for that. You know, many of my guests have said before is that, you know, yes, imposter syndrome is there. Someone said it's not there, but you're definitely the ones who have definitely said, you know, never felt imposter syndrome, but giving, you know, a sense of like, you know, I feel like I'm a historian because I know what I'm talking about, which actually ties in neatly to now the next segment of the interview, which is the business side of being an historian. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts in it and how it is in Malta as opposed to here in the States. Now, I don't know what it may be like in Malta, Luke, when it comes to, you know, looking for a career as an historian. I don't know if there's like any tiered jobs or like levels or stuff like that. So can you tell us from your own research, like what are the career positions an historian could obtain in Malta?
So there are options. They're just not very, how do I put it? They're a bit limited. So you
Okay.
can do what I did and get a base level job at Heritage Malta, for example, and slowly work up the ranks. I have a colleague, for example, Nathaniel, who's part of the Malta University Historical Society as well, who works with Artana, which is another heritage organization, basically doing the same thing that I'm doing. Then, so like you have Heritage Malta, you have Wirt Artna, and then university. You go into lecturing. So, for example, one of my lecturers, Simona Tsapardi, was a master's student like me, and is currently working to get her PhD, and she is an assistant lecturer at the department.
Oh, okay.
Famously, the Department of History has a very good motto that I like to follow. It's an unofficial motto, really. It's history takes you places. Now
Yes, it does.
they enjoy, rightly so, showing that their graduates go on to work not just in heritage and history. So like me working in Heritage Malta, but diplomacy, international relations, European studies. We have alumni who I know from the department who go up to who work in the European Parliament, for example, or as diplomats to people, or journalism. There is someone in particular who became a journalist. So yes, history does take you places, but to stick to what we would say traditional idea of a historian, the research, it's a bit limited, but not impossible.
Okay. So as a follow-up to that, Luke, would you say that you're more of to use a better term, like the independent historian, where you're more of like not following the traditional path and the sense of like, you know, international relations, journalism, working in some European government, or would you say you're more towards the traditional path?
I'm more towards the traditional path. I mean, I want to become a curator in one of the museums with Heritage Malta. I mean, that's my dream, to put it that way.
Okay.
Now, however long that takes, or however, it's up to fate. But But basically, no, I can't imagine myself sitting down at a table discussing the situation between two countries. I'd be like, a war will start if I sit down to try and
All right.
do diplomacy.
That makes sense. That's fair.
Thankfully, Malta's neutral, so I should be okay.
Well, that is true. That is fair. And now that actually kind of leads perfectly into the next question, which is in terms of, audience. And for historians, we're always trying to figure out, who our audience is in terms of, like our research, our scholarship, and who we're trying to market towards, whether we're writing papers, dissertations, making speeches, and so forth. So for you, Luke, working at your current job, who would you say is your target audience as an historian? Those that have a general knowledge of history, or those that are interested in history but don't have a lot of knowledge on topics or a certain topic?
Honestly, in my tours that I do at St. Paul's Catacombs and the other museums, it's a bit of both. You always have, when schools come and I give tours, I take them into the museum and then down into the big catacomb, and after about 10 minutes, I can see that I'm starting to lose them, and I say, okay, I need to show them the bones in the museum because I'm losing them. Because that's what they want, because that's what teenagers want to see. When you have a general group, an open day or some stuff like that, you always have that one person in the back of the group who thinks that he knows better than everyone else, and you try your best to stay calm and deliver the information that you need to deliver in an interesting way without telling off the person who is constantly putting their hand up saying, but this happened like this, and I read this at school, and I'm like, yes, but it's not correct.
Oh man.
There are certain things like, for example, to bring up a Maltese example, there is in 1091, Roger I of Sicily hosted a raid on the islands that were under Muslim control.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 19th century, to make Malta look more European, basically the history of that event was altered to basically make us more Christian and European. So the legend, in fact, this is the legend I learned when I was young at school, was that the Maltese, concept of being Maltese didn't exist, but anyway, pleaded with Count Roger to come and liberate them from the Arabs.
Oh, okay.
He attacked Mdina, the old capital city on the island, and freed the Maltese. In reality, though, apart from that, they say that our flag, so the red and white with the George Cross on it, was given to us by Count Roger as from part of his banner. That is a complete fabrication. What actually happened is that Roger I, not Count Roger, his son, Roger I, was leading an expedition to North Africa and raided the islands in 1091. What actually happened was that he simply raided the islands, and the Islamic population that was already here became his vassals. But life continued as normal.
Okay.
It was then in the 1100s that his son, Count Roger II, then started the re-Christianization process of the islands. Now, when you start mentioning this in tours and even in academic writing, you always have that one person that says, no, that's not true. Count Roger freed the Maltese from the Muslims. Like, the concept of being Maltese didn't exist. It's plainly obvious, It's just these things that drive you crazy as a historian.
Yes,
You know?
that is definitely true. And kind of following up on that, when we approach history, we're always inspired by, our teachers, fellow contemporaries, and writings from other authors who have really helped us hone in to our own in terms of how we present history and how we, share it with others. So for you, Luke, are there any historians, even professors or contemporaries, who you say have molded you into the historian you are today?
Well, the first person that comes to mind is my supervisor, Charles Dalli, who introduced the medieval period to me and opened up an entire new world for me, and has been nothing but constant support in the last 3 years and even now while I'm doing my master's. As inspirations from an academic point of view, I would say Godfrey Wettinger, who was a Maltese historian. Sadly, he passed in 2015, I think, 2014 or 2015, I can't remember. Who was basically the father of Maltese medieval history, and he's published tons of articles and books, some of which are very rare to come by nowadays. Challenging, one of the things that he challenged, for example, was the raid that I mentioned before in 1091.
Right.
He got quite a lot of backlash for it at the time. We're talking the 1970s, 60s and 70s. So Malta was still quite Christian. I mean, it's still quite Christian today, but the church had more power back then.
Okay.
From the other aspect, it's actually quite funny because I never actually met him. My great-grandfather, he died a couple of months before I was born, actually, in March 97. My grandmother always tells me that I would have gotten along with him very well because he was very well read. He was a cultured man. And in the stories that she has told me about him, I feel like she's talking about me.
Wow.
In certain aspects. And I'm like, but that's what I would do, And like, yes, exactly. That's why I tell you would have clicked with him. Funny enough, he wanted, I was born in June 97 and his birthday was in July 97. In July. And he wanted me to be born in the same month that he was born, but he died in March.
Oh, sorry to hear that, man. Wow. But definitely from what you just said, yeah, that is really cool. And this is why I love doing these interviews. I learned so much about my guests, what are their motivations, as I said in the beginning, for pursuing history, whether it's like, colleagues from school who have been huge motivators. As you said before, your advisor was one of many, definitely family members, which is very important. And ultimately, everyone and everything inspires us to be the best versions of ourselves. And I also think it's important to talk about this next part, because I want to hear your thoughts on it, Luke, which is for first-time historians, in the sense of like just leaving university and now going into the workforce. There's always a mentality of the dual paths that I love sharing with my guests, which is to be an historian and to be known as an historian. And for me, those are two very different paths with two very different goals. To be a historian is an individual who's solely dedicated to the discipline, the scholarship, and giving back and inspiring the next generation of historians. To be known as an historian is an individual who is working on their papers, sending them out, trying to get their name out there, which is still an incredible feat nonetheless. But down that path, I definitely feel that there's one thing that kind of gets lost in the translation that does need to be talked about, which is no matter if it's your first paper, your dissertation, or something that you worked in college that you were very proud of and you were able to argue it profusely, like in any career, there's no guarantee that one thing is going to be the start of your legacy as an historian. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule, of course, like in all things. But on the other side of the coin, you have historians who rise, fall, rise again, and fall down even hard. And then that imposter syndrome comes back with a vengeance because the goals that you laid out, the long-term goals, were not met because they were either A, unrealistic, or B, maybe the same thing, but not planned out or organized well. So, Luke, in your opinion, how important is it for first-time historians to like really understand that their debut anything does not guarantee the start of their legacy, but it should not deter them from pursuing history to study more about it, to learn more about it, and to just refine their craft?
So, from my own personal experience, it is very, very hard to get published. Now, the method I have found for myself is that I try as much as possible to get out articles in these student magazines and the ones I mentioned before, like the Historians magazine, because I feel that that is a good way to get your work out there, while at the same time not committing. It's not the right way of looking at it. Sort of like not putting yourself up for academic scrutiny when you're still starting out. It's sort of like a testing the water, sort of.
Right.
So that is what I would recommend to anyone leaving university, either undergraduate, basically. Now, it's important that you do try to get your name out there. So it's not just a matter of, okay, I studied undergraduate in history. Okay, I'm going to go and work, whatever. I mean, if you really want to be a historian, you need to get your name out there through publications.
Right.
Now, being recognized is another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Being recognized is, as you were saying, through constant publishing until you are associated with that topic.
Right.
Be it what it may. It's not easy.
It is not.
I tried myself to submit multiple chapters from my undergraduate dissertation to journals. I didn't manage to get any of them out. What I managed to do was do an article based on my dissertation, and a summarizing article based on what the outcomes were. Again, through the Historians magazine. I couldn't get a journal to accept my work, so
right.
Which is totally normal.
Yes, of course.
So that is what I would say to someone: don't be disheartened just because this particular chapter from your undergraduate dissertation wasn't accepted in a journal. Doesn't mean that it's not good. Just means that you need to keep trying, basically.
Definitely. And to add on to that, grit transforms into talent, because it's just as you said, it may take, several publications until people really understand that you are an expert on this topic that you are arguing or researching. And when they finally find that publication that you're associated with, whether it's like a journal, another form of publication, or a book that you transform your dissertation into, then you can say, hey, if you like this, you should see my growth and the beginning of my research to see how I've, grow and will continue to grow. Because ultimately, going back to what you said, Luke, in the beginning, history takes you everywhere, and it will continue to mold us more and more. Also, it doesn't hurt to also have a good following of friends, family, fellow colleagues who have been by our side to really support us and give us some tips and tricks, especially as historians when it comes to networking, which is huge. So for you, Luke, who would you say have been like the biggest supporters of you on this journey? And what are your thoughts on networking as a historian, and how important is it for all historians to really get into that aspect, the networking part of it?
So, in regards to support, it's basically my family, my parents and my brother, and especially my best friend Gillian, who was the person to inspire me to actually go to university in the first place. She's an archaeologist, so rivals, sort of. The history versus the archaeology rivalry. No, I love archaeology as well. So
yeah.
So in regards to networking, again, it depends on how outgoing you are.
Yes.
I personally can't imagine myself starting a podcast, for example. I don't have the confidence to do what you do and message people from around the world and get interviews. I would freeze up entirely. I mean, I'm fine doing this, but being on your side of the mic is like, oh my God, no.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts. So start basically, it's how willing you are to get your name out there. Now, be it through university societies like myself, like the Malta University Historical Society, where I have friends, very good friends, who have either already graduated or are graduating next year, for example, who are still students. I still value their input as historians, regardless if they haven't graduated or not. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a piece of paper. Nothing makes me better than a second year who is graduating next year. If they have an opinion on a historical event, that opinion is just as valid as my opinion.
Right. And that is very, very, very true, Luke. And now we've arrived at the final question of this historian's interview. And I think you may have already answered it, but I was wondering if you had any other comments to this, which is, so with everything you have learned thus far and still learning about, the historian's field and the discipline, your own expertise, which again, I must say are very, very fascinating. I absolutely love the disciplines that you are focusing on. So with everything you've learned and the connections you've made, friends, family, fellow colleagues at school, your advisors, and so forth, what is your word of wisdom to fellow historians who want to begin their own career path for themselves?
I'm not entirely sure, to be perfectly honest with you. I would say don't give up. Keep pushing. So if you're finding it difficult to do a particular study unit at the moment, it's fine. Keep pushing. Ask for help. That's what the community of historians is for. There's nothing wrong with going up to your lecturer and saying, listen, I can't understand why the Magna Carta was written. Why was it written? What's the point? Ask. That's the point. That's the point of going to university, going and studying. If you are scared to ask your lecturers, which you shouldn't be, ask the other students. Ask. Join a historical society. Ask other people. That is something I believe in very much, that there are no stupid questions. Ask. That is the biggest thing you can do. And if you feel like you are going to give up, put it down, push it aside, take a deep breath, go do something else, leave it 3-4 days, come back, and your perspective on it will change completely. So it's like as I was saying, I was working on the fires of Constantinople. I had to do that because there was so much information. I was felt like so all over the place. I was like, I need to think about it. So I put it down, put it aside, and while I'm going about my day at work or even at home or wherever, my mind is always thinking about it. So why is it like that? And it works for me. Can work for anyone.
Excellent, Luke. Excellent. That is probably a perfect way to end this incredible historian's interview. Now, before we officially end, Luke, where can people find and engage with you online? And do you have any announcements you would like to make in terms of like other publications we should be on lookout from you? Anything in the works from university or any events at the Maltese tours that you are doing?
Well, to find my work, the little that there is out there till now, I have an academia.edu page and a ResearchGate page. Basically, if you Google my name, Luke Gauci, it will come up. Sadly enough, I've tested it to make sure it does.
All right.
In regards to the Malta University Historical Society, at the moment we're actually working on a sort of newsletter. So if you get in contact with us on Facebook, if you just write Malta University Historical Society, even if you aren't in Malta, it's a PDF, so we can send it anyway. You can become a member. The membership is €5, and get access to not only the news article that we are working on at the moment, but we also have a journal that we publish every 2 to 3 years. It's called Storia. I can just 1 second. Okay, I'm back.
All right.
So basically, nice. This is the latest one that came out. So it includes lists. It includes articles mainly from graduate students, and lists of dissertations, for example, that have been published in the last couple of years by students at the University of Malta in relation to history, which I wrote. So
nice.
There's also lists of militentia related to Malta, besides the articles. Obviously, to get Storia, it's a bit more of a challenge because at the moment it's out of this particular one is out of print, because we miscalculated. We didn't realize how well this particular edition was going to sell. So, but we have a backlog of Storia going back to 1996. Sorry.
Oh, so, you guys got quite a lot.
Yes, we got quite a few. But as I said, if you are interested in reading the newsletter, till now we've only published one. You can get in contact with the Malta University Historical Society and basically become a member and get access to these things.
I will link all those down below in the description of this video, as well as if you want to reach out to Luke personally, follow him also on LinkedIn to stay up to date with all of his posts, as well as any news announcements he'll be making, whether it's his own research or research with the university or with the Historical Society. Thank you again, viewers and listeners, for joining us for another historian's interview. again, a huge thank you to our guest, Mr. Luke Gauci, for coming on the show and telling us all about his journey as historian. And we wish him the very, very best going forward. So again, make sure to follow him on LinkedIn, as I will be linking it down below in the description of this video. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what was your favorite part of the interview. And as a final announcement, make sure, as a little shameless promotion here, everyone, make sure to pre-order a copy of Michael the Last Angel of Earth, which is available now on barnesandnoble.com. For every pre-order, you will receive an exclusive print from me with proof of purchase. And if you want to join my ARC readers, the application is open. So see the previous video before this to apply. And I will see you guys then. Until then, this is the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out, wishing you all a wonderful day.